There's a lag between thinking and doing. Thoughts begin to contradict action, and then change starts to occur subtly. Stress, urgency, and emotion slowly cause our actions to drift over an extended period, and it looks confusing. It looks like failure. But how does this drift seem to radically change our behaviors and our trajectory? How does the drift disconnect from our thoughts to our actions? It's the small incremental changes or compromises that I make with myself. For example, I want to say a few months ago, every day I would do a morning practice. Still do morning practice, just not the same. So I committed to 20 minutes of time every morning to go do this practice. But it seemed like I would leave early, starting off after 2 or 3 weeks. I would get up like 2 or 3 minutes earlier, and I even set an alarm for myself. And then I vividly remember changing the time on the alarm from 20 minutes to 17 minutes, and then 15 minutes, and then 14 and 13 minutes. And slowly, I was negotiating with myself and incrementally changing what I committed to doing. And it almost seemed invisible to me because I would still go do it, just not for the length of time that I did it. And then I remember leaving for work in a rush, and I'll get to why I was in a rush later, but leaving in a rush. And so in my head, I was just like, it's just 5 minutes. I'll just skip it. I'll catch up tomorrow, or I'll reset tomorrow, or I'll catch it later on in the morning, whenever I had an opportunity to do that. So it wasn't that I just stopped doing it automatically out of nowhere. No, it happened pretty invisibly, and to a point where I didn't even notice that it was happening until weeks later. I was like, oh, wait, I used to do that and I don't do it anymore. What happened? This is an example of internal drift, where the commitments I make to myself inside my own head start diverging from the actions that I'm performing. In this specific situation, I was changing incremental to a point where my mornings looked radically different than what they had 2 months prior. You can relate this to the gym, or food, or eating healthy, sleeping longer, waking up early. You can just plug in whatever your experience is with this, because everything I just mentioned, I have also done this there. So this often happens with all sorts of activities, and eventually those small compromises that I've made with myself in my head start showing up in my actions, which is drift, but that's internal drift. There's an external drift as well, where my actions don't line up to what I tell other people I'm going to do. My son and I go on a evening date dinner, father son. We go out to eat, and I pick him up about 5:30, and we get home about 9. So it's just me and him, nobody else. He has a sister, stepmom, his mom, all these other people, but it's just me and him spending time together. And so we're the only people who are involved in that commitment. One day, he got out of school. He's like, Dad, I'm just exhausted. I'm tired. I really don't want to go today. I think I ate something bad. So I was like, okay, cool. We'll go next week. Well, the next week rolled around, and I didn't remind him. I was waiting for him to remind me, because I was feeling like he did the prior week, and he didn't remind me. I guess he didn't want to go. He's 15 years old, so he's a teenager, doesn't really want to go. unless I force him to, which I do because I like spending time with him. But then the next week rolled around, and it didn't even cross my mind. And this didn't happen because I don't love him or I don't care about him or because I don't like spending time with him, because I love to. It was because of this drift that I was experiencing bled in from other areas of my life. And that morning practice that I mentioned is one of them. So it really all connects. The drift doesn't necessarily happen immediately with the situation at hand. At work, I like to be lazy. Who would have thought? I don't really, at my previous job, I didn't really like it. It wasn't fun. It wasn't something that I looked forward to. And I was given a lot of tasks with little oversight. And so I would procrastinate, not really want to do it. I had better things to do, like nothing. I would procrastinate to the point where my work would pile up. And the next day I would feel urgent, like a sense of urgency. There would be pressure on me, stress for not meeting deadlines. And so I would take time away from the 20 minutes that I would have to spend in my practice because I felt urgency and needed to go to work. But I wasn't sacrificing part of that 20 minutes because I didn't want to do that 20 minutes. It was because I was sacrificing my integrity at work. So I was hired to do a job, and I said I would do the job, but my actions were lining up different than what I was saying. So there was a drift in that area, which caused an internal drift here. And then I was exhausted, stressed, using a lot of brain power to meet my expectations or other people's expectations at work. And so when it was time to go with my son, I just didn't want to that second time because I was exhausted, because I experienced drift in other areas. The drift doesn't happen in one particular situation. It usually happens where I'm not looking and then starts to bleed in other areas. And because I am good at holding my commitments in one area, I will take that and I will build this image of who I am based on that one part where I'm experiencing drift over here in my character. My actions aren't lining up with what I'm saying. And when I do get awareness around it, then I feel like a failure. I feel like I didn't show up in other people's lives, and I start to lose my self-worth. I think everybody experiences that. A lot of people that I've worked with have experienced it, and a lot of people who have worked with me have experienced it. So it's not abnormal. It's part of the human condition. It feels like a cycle where one thing perpetuates the other. I'm skipping my practice because I'm lazy at work, but I'm lazy at work because I skip my practice. It's just this vicious cycle that it feels like there's no escape from. And what happens is it leads to collapse or a pressure explode. And then I ask myself, what happened? How did I end up here? I'm sure that you've been there too. How did I get so far away from what I said I was going to do over this time? Where did the time go? Why can't I do it? And those questions and awareness that you have, you're not getting those because you're broken, and you're not meeting those standards because you're a failure. We can look at those questions and that awareness as information. Our backslides are not failure, they're starting points. And when we can recognize that, when we can accept that we will drift, then we can look at ways to come correct, ways to be correct. Not correct according to what other people say we need to be correct, but according to our own standards and according to our own goals. And so when we experience this drift, we can put systems in place to help us get back. And sometimes we need a community, we need a group to help stay accountable. And that's okay. We're better connected anyway. And so we are building something specifically for that on our end, and you're welcome to join when I launch that community in the near future. We would love to have you. But for now, don't count yourself as a failure because you drift